am Trevor Rolls. Thank you for tuning in to Resource Review. Today we're going to be going over the book The Return of the God Hypothesis by Dr. Stephen C. Meyer. For many of us, this book has been highly anticipated. I know for myself, this is especially true. I pre-ordered my book way back in 2019, and finally on March 30th, 2021, which for me was yesterday, the book finally released. I also pre-ordered the audiobook version so that way, as soon as it released, I could start listening to it before my copy actually even arrived. And I was able to get through it all yesterday and get my Amazon review up late last night, but I wanted to take a little bit of extra time and go a little bit more in depth for you guys here on the channel. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be getting into, digging a little deeper, and reviewing and summarizing this book, The Return of the God Hypothesis by Dr. Stephen C. Meyer. So please expect some spoilers. If that's not your thing, then let this video pass, because I am going to be talking about the content of the book. So let's start out with a little product information. I already told you that the book was released yesterday, March 30th, 2021, and it is a rather large volume at 576 pages. It's published by Harper One, and the current price on Amazon is $26.99 for the hardcover format. But it's also available on Kindle, audiobook, and audio CD. I bought mine on Amazon, but it is also available from Barnes & Noble, christianbook.com, and other similar retailers. So that's all pretty basic book stuff, but that cannot be said about the author, Dr. Meyer. He is a philosopher of science who worked as a geophysicist in his early career after undergraduate education before moving on to study biology and the origin of life at the graduate level, and finally obtaining his PhD in the philosophy of science from Cambridge University. Dr. Meyer has authored two previous books, The Signature in the Cell and Darwin's Doubt, which presents kind of his thrust, you know, his main push, which is the idea that the necessity for life is information, and information only comes from an intelligent being, an intelligent mind. So as such, Dr. Myers here is a pillar in the intelligent design community. He's also the director of the Center for Science and Culture at the Discovery Institute in Seattle, Washington. And during his career as an advocate for intelligent design, Dr. Meyer, he's typically refrained from assigning an identity, a hypothesis to who he thinks that intelligent designer of the universe is. But in this book, Dr. Meyer comfortably asserts that given the scientific evidence, his faith, his Christian faith, is completely compatible with what we know about the universe. And indeed, according to him, best explains the phenomena that he presents in his work. So all that being said, let's move to summarize, okay? Let's move to summarize. And while Dr. Meyer, okay, he presents a sophisticated argument for theistic intelligent design, he does so in a fairly straightforward, argumentative, persuasive format. He starts with background of all the areas he's going to discuss, and he then explains the methodology that he's going to use, and then he's going to apply those methods to the areas of his main points. And from here he considers counter-arguments, and finally he offers his conclusion. And if you look at the table of contents of the book, you can see this layout, right, which he segments into 5 parts: background, arguments, methods, objections and refutations, and conclusions. So essentially, this is how you would write a paper, an essay or a lab report, but in this case, it's a really long one. So let's look at these sections a little bit. The background first, okay? This begins with sort of a tour of the history and philosophy of science, and the reason is that he wants to set the record straight to refute the pervasive warfare myth that theism and science have been at war with each other. Myers wants to start the journey here by showing that much of the opposition to theism is false. Okay, it's presented on false premises, namely that theism is anti-science. So many founders of modern science were theists. This is the argument that Meyer makes, and they invoked the God hypothesis. Now this fits into when he says to claim the return of the God hypothesis suggests that there once was a God hypothesis and then it went somewhere, and now it's back. And this is precisely his point. Theism was never anti-science. It was, in the founders of modern science, a science starter, okay? So the second part of his background treatment offers a history and the current beliefs regarding the origins of the universe, the fine-tuning of the universe, and the presence of information in both the origins and the explosion of life. Now, I've called this a background, but it's actually where he begins presenting his thesis, that these areas he investigates and explains, starlight, Big Bang, space-time, fine-tuning, teleology, origins of life, DNA, the Cambrian explosion, right? All these are best explained, according to Meyer, by a theistic worldview. So here he's really giving a background to these topics and then lightly presenting his theses on them. But now, okay, the next section is his methodology, his reasoning. Dr. Meyer discusses various modes of evaluation as well as various worldviews and their positions on metaphysical components to reality. And from here, Meyer, using the method of abductive reasoning, which he introduces and then he explains, right? He seeks to show the adequacy and explanatory power of the God hypothesis, that is, theism, okay, theism, as compared to the competing hypothesis of deism, naturalism, and pantheism. And he's doing this to account for the beginning of the universe, the design in the universe, and the design of life, which he breaks up into now 4 individual chapters. So now, after applying his methodology in examination of the 3 main ideas, Dr. Meyer addresses responses, potential refutations, and conjectures on behalf of the positions that he claims are inadequate causally and explanatorily regarding his main thesis points. This is to say, Meyer presents counter-arguments to his claims. He's not sparing, okay? He includes objections from many various fields and theories to his arguments. Some of these include chemical evolution, RNA world, evolutionary biologists, theistic and atheistic, various multiverse theories, quantum theories, and more. To sum it up, Dr. Meyer wants to make sure his opposition is heard and fairly represented. So finally, Meyer moves now to his conclusion, and this is, as the title suggests, that the God hypothesis has come full circle and is once again a viable and, in his opinion, superior explanation for the previously named phenomena. Now, I don't want to give away the goods here, okay? which is why I just summarized. But when Dr. Meyer presents his conclusion, I want to say that he really drives the point home. He drives it home, and he insists on the importance of considering hard, controversial, and otherwise challenging questions and critiques involving our worldviews. He's saying, whatever your position is, don't take the easy way out. Now that I've given you a quick summary, okay, of his work, let me offer my own critique. And first, I want to say the good, what I liked. Okay, Meyer, he's a storyteller. And I love this about him. He doesn't simply make assertions such as to say, oh, there's a big banger, or there's a big bang, so that suggests that behind it all there's a cause, there's a big banger. Rather, he's going to tell you the whole story. He's going to tell you the whole story of the Big Bang. He's going to say how it was arrived at, what it means, why it's still around, who likes it, who doesn't like it, and all that sort of thing. He's going to present the whole picture. And then, in light of that, in light of those facts, he's going to explain the philosophical and theological implications from that informed position. And this is his style. It's very thorough. And on that note, if you look at the bibliography, you're going to see that there's over 500 sources listed from various scientists, philosophers, sympathizers, criticizers, theologians. It's just full of sources because, again, he doesn't just make claims, he presents whole accounts. So when you read his work, you really get the feeling that you are getting a detailed and fair treatment of the issues and the topics. Okay, but this also kind of leads to the bad, and simply put, sometimes it's just too much. It's just too much for the average layperson to grasp. I did okay with this book because I'm familiar with a lot of the topics, but if a person, right, if they're just learning about these topics for the first time, it can seem a little overwhelming. And in his previous works, to kind of remember for myself, I had to at times skip over some of the technical explanations, and I had to move to the parts where he was summarizing to me, the reader, so that I could just get the main idea of what he was saying. So that really is a consideration. Some people, they're just going to have a hard time if they're new to this type of literature. And finally, the ugly, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly is that Dr. Meyer, he's on the bleeding edge of development in a philosophical and scientific turf war, or an arms race, if you prefer to put it like that. And he did a great job refuting the myth that science and religion were at odds with each other in the past, but he is completely aware of the war of the worldviews that is currently in play. And this is it's an ugly subject. It's an ugly subject. And while he was ever the gentleman in his presentation, I expect a deluge of ad hominem attacks and invective, really, from those who hate him, from those who hate his position. So the ugly, quite literally, is that the topic has been, and will get ugly and uglier from this point out. So my conclusion now, coming to the end here, is this. If you're even at all interested in the relationship between science and religion, go out and buy this book. Go out and buy it, okay? But if you don't like having your presuppositions and your worldview challenged, then don't buy this book. Don't buy this book, because I can guarantee that if you're open and if you're objective, you will be pressed and you will be stretched. Whether you're a theist, whether you're a deist, whether you're a naturalist, the book is going to challenge you, okay? But if you do buy the book and you don't like what it says, all of the claims are sourced and they're open. They're there for investigation. If you don't like his arguments, right, refute him. Prove him wrong. Challenge him. He has kept nothing hidden. So that's it. That's it for this review of Return of the God Hypothesis by Dr. Stephen C. Meyer. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I look forward to the next time. Thank you so much, and God bless.